October 9, 1856. Montgomery, Alabama. The Cotton Exchange auction floor. Beneath wrought iron balconies, a woman stands on the auction block. The auctioneer's hammer strikes 23 times before silence claims the crowd. When the bidding stops, the winning bidder vomits into a brass spittoon before signing the bill of sale with trembling hands. The final price, equivalent to $412,000 in today's currency. The highest price ever paid for an enslaved person in Alabama history. More than 3 working plantations, more wealth than most men in that room would earn across their entire lifetimes. Yet 6 different buyers competed with desperation bordering on madness, driving the price upward in increments that made no economic sense. No newspaper reported the transaction. No ledger survived to explain it. And the woman herself never spoke throughout the entire proceeding. She stood with her eyes fixed on something no one else could see, wearing an expression witnesses described as a smile that wasn't quite a smile, more like someone watching a trap spring shut exactly when they knew it would. What secret could justify such an impossible sum? What knowledge could transform a human being into the most expensive piece of property ever sold in the South? And why did 3 of the men who bid on her die under mysterious circumstances within 18 months, while 2 others fled Alabama forever, abandoning everything as though pursued by something more terrifying than debt or scandal? Her name was Delilah, and what she possessed was far more dangerous than physical labor. She possessed perfect memory, photographic recall of every document, ledger, contract, deed, and financial record she had ever observed. Every conversation held in her presence, every secret whispered by men who treated enslaved people as furniture, present but not listening, watching but not understanding. For 15 years, Delilah had served in the households of Montgomery's elite, the city's most prominent attorney, where she was present during confidential client meetings. A cotton factor who tracked credit extended to dozens of planters. A judge whose library contained land deeds establishing ownership of thousands of acres. A merchant banker who processed loans secured by plantations men had no realistic prospect of repaying. In each household, she was valued for being quiet, unobtrusive, efficient. Owners discussed confidential matters in her presence, reviewed private documents while she cleaned, negotiated sensitive agreements while she served tea. They never considered that her silence concealed attention rather than ignorance. After all, she was illiterate, or so they believed. Enslaved people weren't taught to read. They couldn't possibly understand contract language or property boundaries or account balances. Except Delilah could read. She had taught herself, perhaps by observing lessons given to white children, perhaps through books left carelessly within reach, perhaps through help from someone who violated Alabama law. And she possessed something beyond literacy, something that violated natural law itself. The first to discover this was Richard Thornhill, who purchased Delilah in 1853. After 8 months of unremarkable service, he asked her casually where he'd filed a letter from his cotton factor. Her response changed everything. 3rd drawer of your desk, behind correspondence from your brother. It arrived October 19th. Your factor sold 17 bales at 9 cents per pound for total proceeds of $843.60, minus 6% commission, leaving a balance of $792.98 to be credited to your account. The letter was 4 months old. She'd been in the room when he read it once, just once. Yet she recited financial details with precision matching the document exactly. Thornhill tested her repeatedly over the following weeks. Every test produced the same result. She could recite pages of text word for word, reproduce columns of numbers with perfect accuracy, describe documents she'd seen once, months or years earlier, with detail exceeding his own memory. Thornhill understood immediately what he possessed and what danger it represented. Delilah wasn't just a house servant with unusual memory. She was a walking archive of every document she'd ever observed. Given her history across Montgomery households, she potentially contained enough financial information to rewrite the economic landscape of central Alabama. She knew who owed what to whom, which property deeds contained exploitable errors, which men had signed contracts they later denied, which fortunes rested on paper claims that wouldn't survive legal scrutiny. For nearly a year, Thornhill used her selectively, consulting her privately about contract terms and property boundaries, presenting the information as his own knowledge. He made considerable money. But he also began drinking heavily, sleeping poorly, exhibiting paranoia. He kept Delilah locked away when visitors came, fired 3 overseers in 6 months, convinced they were spying. His wife complained to relatives that Richard was becoming unbalanced, obsessed with some secret he refused to explain. In August 1855, Thornhill made a fatal decision. He approached prominent Montgomery men with a proposal. He would rent them access to Delilah's memory for substantial fees. He believed this would spread the risk while still profiting from what he owned. The proposal backfired catastrophically. Once people understood what Delilah represented, they didn't want to rent access. They wanted to own her completely, to control her knowledge absolutely, to prevent anyone else from using it against them. Within weeks, Thornhill received purchase offers accompanied by barely veiled threats. His plantation was burglarized twice. His warehouse suffered a suspicious fire. Someone shot at him from the tree line. Richard Thornhill broke. In December 1855, he sold Delilah to an intermediary for $12,000 and fled Alabama. Within a month, he relocated to Kentucky under an assumed name and never spoke publicly about her again. The intermediary was attorney Samuel Crawford, who specialized in discreet services wealthy families required when scandals threatened. He understood Delilah represented something unprecedented, information that could never become public without destroying its worth. After 9 months of consultations, Crawford decided to auction her publicly, creating competition that would drive the price to unprecedented levels while demonstrating that secrets existed and could be purchased. The auction would serve as both sale and warning, revealing that no private document remained truly private, that the entire structure of credit and debt in Alabama rested on assumptions about confidentiality that no longer held. October 9, 1856. The auction begins at 10:30 a.m. Auctioneer Silas Whitmore, a man who'd conducted over 8,000 sales, reads from a sealed envelope, "The property possesses complete and perfect recall of every document she has ever observed. Her memory operates with precision equivalent to photographic reproduction. She has been present during preparation and review of thousands of documents, many believed private. She will cooperate fully with her legal owner, providing any information requested in complete and accurate detail." The opening bid, $8,000, an insane sum for any enslaved person. Then the bidding begins, $9,000, $12,000. Men aren't bidding on labor, they're bidding on power, or bidding to prevent others from acquiring a weapon that could destroy them. At $20,000, a man near the sidewall announces his final bid. His competitors lower their hands, relief mixed with terror at what they'd almost purchased. The winner, Marcus Webb. Except that name was fiction. He was a professional blackmailer who understood that the auction itself was Delilah's death sentence. Once everyone knew what she contained, she became too dangerous to live. Webb's purchase was a rescue operation, though whether to rescue Delilah or the secrets she held remained ambiguous. He took her north immediately, traveling toward Tennessee, moving quickly. At a farmhouse refuge, Webb finally spoke to her directly. "You understand what's about to happen. The men who bid against me can't allow you to exist as someone else's property. They'll come for you, some with money, some with threats, some will simply try to kill you." Delilah's response chilled him. "I've always been the most dangerous person in Alabama. They just didn't know it until today." Webb stared, recalibrating. "You wanted this. You wanted to be sold publicly. You wanted everyone to know what you can do." Delilah smiled. That expression witnesses had tried to describe. "They've been extracting value from me for 15 years, using my memory to resolve disputes, settle debts, confirm claims. They treated me like a tool. So I decided to show them exactly what I am. Not a tool, a weapon. And now they'll pay the price for every secret I've collected." Webb felt something cold settle in his chest. What price? Delilah looked into darkness. They think owning me gives them control. But information doesn't work that way. Once people know secrets can be remembered perfectly, trust becomes impossible. How does a planter negotiate if he knows conversations might be recorded in flawless memory? How does a banker extend credit worrying his account books might be memorized? How do they continue operating when privacy is revealed as illusion? I'm not a weapon you can point at enemies. I'm a weapon that's already detonated. The damage is done. The auction did what I needed. Now we watch everything collapse. Delilah was absolutely correct. Within weeks, paranoia spread through Montgomery like fever. 3 weeks after the auction, James Delilah, who'd bid $8,000, was found dead in his office. The coroner ruled it suicide, but friends recognized his handwriting in the farewell letter seemed unsteady, as though written under duress. His account books were missing. In November, Thomas Sheridan, who'd bid $9,000, fled Montgomery under cover of darkness, abandoning his wife and children. His bank discovered embezzlement evidence that seemed too perfectly documented, as though arranged specifically to drive him into exile. In December, William Crane, who'd bid to $12,000, was killed when his carriage overturned on a road he'd traveled safely for 20 years, where someone had strategically weakened the surface. Marcus Webb and Delilah vanished completely. No one could locate them. It was as though Earth had swallowed them both, but the truth emerged years later, during the Civil War's chaos. In 1864, a Union officer named Colonel Benjamin Hastings received an unusual visitor, a woman of mixed race, approximately 45 years old, identifying herself as Delilah Webb. She claimed to possess information valuable to Union intelligence. She'd spent years in Montgomery households where Confederate officers discussed strategy, supply lines, financial arrangements. She could remember conversations perfectly, reproduce documents detailing the Confederacy's vulnerabilities. Hastings tested her, showed her a captured Confederate dispatch once. She recited it perfectly, troop positions, supply requisitions, every detail. The information Delilah provided proved devastatingly accurate. Cotton shipments through Mexico, British textile manufacturer connections, Confederate sympathizers in border states. Her intelligence contributed to Union victories that shortened the war by an estimated 6 months, destroying the economic foundation sustaining Confederate military operations. She maintained that same unsettling composure throughout, providing information with mechanical precision, never revealing whether she took satisfaction from the devastation her knowledge caused to families that had owned her. When the war ended, Delilah disappeared again. She possessed enough money from intelligence work to purchase genuine freedom and establish herself anywhere. Some records suggest Philadelphia, others Boston or New York. The most disturbing detail, she allegedly began sending letters to Alabama families, polite, carefully worded reminders that she remembered everything. She could prove debts conveniently forgotten, property transfers never properly recorded, agreements that violated laws if made public. She didn't ask for money explicitly. She just reminded them she existed, that her memory existed. That memory doesn't die because the war ended. Some families paid her quarterly or yearly, purchasing silence about things their ancestors had done. Those who refused had unfortunate things happen, deeds challenged successfully, partnerships collapsed, reputations destroyed when letters appeared describing transactions people swore never occurred. Delilah lived well in her later years, owned property in 3 cities, dressed in clothes appropriate for wealthy white women, traveled wherever she pleased. She supported herself through careful exploitation of knowledge accumulated across decades of being treated as furniture. The last confirmed reference appears in an 1897 unsigned letter discovered in Freedmen's Bureau archives, written in elegant handwriting by an educated elderly woman. The final paragraph captures something essential. They believed they owned me. They believed purchasing my body gave them rights to what my mind contained. But memory cannot be owned. Knowledge cannot be chained. I carried their secrets through decades of bondage. When freedom came, those secrets became currency I spent deliberately, extracting payment for every humiliation. Some call this revenge. I call it accounting. They kept ledgers tracking what they stole. I simply kept better records, and I collected the debt they insisted didn't exist. Whether Delilah wrote these words or someone else did, they represent truth extending beyond one woman. Throughout slavery's history, enslaved people accumulated knowledge about owners while being treated as though they observed nothing. Sometimes they used that knowledge to create space for resistance, to extract small victories, to demonstrate that systems designed to crush them contained weaknesses careful observation could exploit. The auction on October 9, 1856, was about this uncomfortable truth. Montgomery's elite weren't just purchasing property. They were confronting revelation that their power had always been more fragile than believed, that people they owned had been watching just as carefully, and that memory could be a weapon waiting decades before being deployed with devastating effect. 3 bidders died within 18 months. 2 fled forever. Survivors spent their lives wondering what she remembered, what price she might demand. The auction destroyed trust between planters and factors, between anyone whose business depended on confidentiality. This economic disruption contributed to Alabama's vulnerability. When war came, Delilah walked away free, carrying secrets that sustained her, extracting payment from people who insisted they owed nothing, demonstrating that knowledge requires payment, and debts compound until someone settles the account. The Montgomery Cotton Exchange building was demolished in 1931. No marker commemorates what occurred there. No monument acknowledges the woman who sold for more than any enslaved person in Alabama history. But memory persists when monuments don't. Stories survive when official history tries to bury them. Delilah told them from the beginning, knowledge requires payment. They didn't understand she wasn't explaining what they'd pay to acquire her knowledge. She was explaining what they'd pay for having stolen it in the first place. That bill came due eventually, collected by the woman they believed they owned, but who spent every moment of bondage preparing for the accounting that would come when freedom made collection possible.